So I've been doing a lot of portrait paintings lately, and that's because I'm currently building a portrait painting course. And in this video, I want to walk through this painting right here and just talk about the three main things that I felt like once I understood, I felt I had a better grasp on portrait painting and things got a lot easier. All right, welcome to Paint Coach. My name's Chris Fornatero, and I'm here to help simplify oil painting so that you can get better faster. Now, I'm not done building this online portrait course yet, but if you don't want to miss out on when it is released, make sure to sign up for the Paint Coach newsletter. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Also, please comment in the comment section on what part of portrait painting you struggle with. Like when you look at your portraits, what do you wish you could make better? Which problems do you wish you had answers for? I'd love to take a look at them and make sure I can address as many problems as possible in this course. All right, let's jump on into this painting. All right, so the first aspect of portrait painting that I feel is just so important to understand and get a hold of is understanding and getting the base spherical shape of the head. You know, with portraits, it's so tempting. You want to just dive in and just get into details and paint that eyes and nose and mouth and all this stuff. And you kind of skip over the most basic part, which is the fact that the head is a sphere with a light source, and there's going to be a shadowed side and a light side and reflected light, just like a sphere. And I know that sounds oversimplified. I know when you're painting portraits, it seems so hard and complicated, and saying, oh, it's just a sphere with a light source on it. It's so simple. When I first heard someone talk about that, I was like, oh, it's way more complicated than that. But it really isn't, and it's a good place to start. I'm a big fan of working easy to hard. Get the easy thing first and let that help you work to the harder parts. So with this portrait, I use relatively thin paint that's thinned out with paint thinner to block out the vague spherical shape of the head. This is gonna help me stay on track so much when I start finding smaller shapes and start carving away at the features, because I know the overall light and shadow pattern. And a lot of times I find it helpful to do, small, quick 20 to 40 minute studies of the head, just focusing on this big spherical shape. Not trying to get a likeness, but just study the shape and the light. Where's the shadow? Where's the light side? Is there reflected light? What's happening with the colors? You can solve a lot of problems and learn a lot from doing little studies like that. All right, the second thing is the big value shapes. This is kind of the next thing I do after I figure out the vague spherical shape of the head. Now, this does require my drawing skills a bit. I have to find the correct form of these shapes and the right placement of them, but also, more importantly, the right value. I'm squinting my eyes to compress values and just try and see big light and dark shapes. I'm also paying very close attention to the value relationships. How much lighter is a shape than another shape? How much darker is it? We're working on a flat two-dimensional surface, and the way that we're going to portray form is with value. If I took the reference photo, put it in black and white, and just made it a series of flat value shapes, the form will still be portrayed. It's actually very helpful to make the photo like this and paint it as an exercise, because it's going to train your brain and your eye to look at the portrait differently and to break it down into shapes and values. Now take note here that without even putting the features in, there's still a likeness. That goes to show you that the important thing with portraits isn't the details. It's these bigger concepts and ideas that I'm talking about. You know, you can paint an eye perfectly with a whole bunch of detail, but if it's done in an eye socket where the value is off and the whole shape of the eye socket is off, and the eye socket is on a head where the spherical shape isn't being portrayed that well and it looks flat, it's not gonna matter. And the last thing is understanding the planes of the face. As I'm carving away at the face, I'm really trying to think about the planes. And a plane is a change in direction of a flat surface. So a lot of times the planes can help identify the value. And understanding the planes and where to look for them is gonna help you see more in your photo reference. Especially when you're painting someone like this who has very soft features and the changes in value and color are very subtle. You know, I have this planes of the head model, but it's fun to study and look at, and actually photographed it with the same lighting setup that I had with the model and painted it just in black and white to really study what goes on value-wise and to see how much you can communicate with the planes and dialing in those values and value relationships right. I feel like this also influences my brush work and the direction that I go, because I'm always thinking that I'm painting on the surface of that plane, if that makes sense. All right, so as I said, this portrait is actually from the portrait course that I'm building. It's just one of a handful of portraits and demonstrations and exercises and stuff that I go over. And the course should be out in the next month or so. Again, if you don't want to miss out on when I release it, sign up for the Paint Coach newsletter, which a link to that is in the description below. And if you want to see what I'm painting on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at 4is43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.